Good evening. We're going to start the meeting. It's 6 o'clock. This is a meeting of the Cabinet of Gloucester City Council. It's 16th of October. This meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. The recording of the meeting will remain online for 4 years, and if you are present in the chamber, you are consenting to appearing in the recording and broadcast, which may be used for training purposes. The first item on the agenda is apologies, which we've had none. The second one is a declarations of interest. I don't know whether anybody's got a declaration of interest. No. The third item is the minutes of the last meeting. Do you accept them as being a true and accurate record? Yep. Okay, I'll sign those after the meeting. Item 4 is public questions. I understand we haven't any. Okay. Then we've got petitions and deputations. Do we have one?
Hello there, my name's Paul Birch of a petition relating to the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty.
You might need to know that he can speak on it for a few minutes.
Is there anything you wish to say, any more you want to say on it? Just remember to turn your microphone on before you start.
Select it if you want.
Hello there everyone, my name's Paul Birch and I'm here to speak about the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. Climate disasters are an ever-growing danger to us all. Fossil fuels have caused nearly 90% of carbon emissions. We need to end the fossil fuel era fairly and forever. A growing group of experts, MPs and activists have a plan. The Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty is a bold proposal for an international agreement that would plan and manage a just global transition away from coal, oil and gas, making sure no country or worker is left behind. Countries would agree to 3 pillars. The first pillar is non-proliferation. Stop adding fuel to the fire by ending the expansion of coal, oil and gas production. The second pillar is a fair phase-out, a fair plan for ending existing fossil fuel production, where nations with the capacity and historical responsibility for emissions transition fastest, providing support to others around the world. The third pillar is a just transition. Fast-track the adoption of clean energy and economic diversification away from fossil fuels so that no worker, community or country is left behind. I believe that it would be a very positive development if Gloucester City Council were able to formally endorse a draft version of this treaty, as this would put pressure on the UK government to also support the treaty. The City Council's climate change strategy is very positive, but action to reduce the use of fossil fuels is desperately needed at a national and international level. London, Birmingham and Edinburgh are among the local government areas that have so far backed the treaty. I have collected 350 local signatures in a petition calling on the Council to support the treaty. Would you be prepared to support it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
we'll certainly consider it. And as you know, we're going through the consultation on the climate change strategy, and so we'll include it in that, and we should hopefully be able to put a response in the climate change strategy as well to your request. I note that you also want it to go to Gloucestershire County Council. Are you going to put it in separately, or would you like us to copy it to them?
I'll put it in separately, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Do you want to say anything? Well,
Thank you.
it will be processed.
Thank you.
Next item is leader and cabinet members question time. And I got 4 in from Councillor Chambers, who is not present to ask a supplementary. So we'll just go on to question number 5 from Tree Chambers.
Right, okay, thank you for your response. Yeah, I think that, yeah, the thing is, as I previously said, it was a great report, really good report. But most of the information in it is stuff that councillors, council officers and professionals from other organisations would fully understand already and know. Do you not think that the money spent on doing that research may have been better spent on basically doing some small, easily accessible A5 size printout that people could pick up from places, so that the public could actually access that support really easily without having to find access to the internet, which some people don't have?
Thank you, Tree. I'm sorry that you are disappointed with this. I know this is something you keep going on about, and I can completely empathise with the fact that you are disappointed. We did all what we did was asked, we feel, from what was the motion. I suppose if the motion had been explicit in what you really said, which was this, an A5 piece of paper, given and sent out in places like libraries and things, then maybe that is what we would have produced. But it was very much what we saw as being that motion. We have what we have. I don't think we'd want to spend any further resource on carrying out what you're now saying. That said, maybe in the new budget, maybe in February, we could look at doing that. So they're more kind of leaflet-driven measures, exactly what you said. So maybe something we can revisit. But also again saying that we have got this report now, we have got this action plan, and therefore at least, especially with the recommendations, which I'll talk a bit more about at the report stage, it does then hold us more to account in the sense that it is this blueprint. So at least something has come out of that motion, and then so looking forward, maybe it's something we can revisit in the budget. All right, thanks, Tree.
And that's the end of members' questions. The next item is to deal with the last question, really, the cost of living motion update. Just remind people that it was changed the agenda paper, which has got new recommendations up to 6. They were published on the website, so I don't know whether you've actually seen them, but I think it makes it much more comprehensive. Anyway, Rebecca, do you want to introduce your report and the new recommendations?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So the report has come from quite a thorough going over at the Overview Scrutiny Committee. I have taken on board many, if not all of those points that were done by scrutiny members, which has made then these recommendations, which I think actually makes it more of a stronger report, and one that members can take forward, ones that this council can actually now take forward as well, and also for members and just general residents. Just to go through some of these recommendations, which I believe are quite thorough. So I'm kind of asking for the rest of my cabinet to ask to resolve that the council's cost of living action plan be noted and recognised as a live document which will be continuously updated. I think the word continuously is really important. 2, the support of both MPs be sought to ensure that personal benefits funded by the government are maintained and enhanced to ensure that everyone in Gloucester can provide adequately for themselves and their families. The Cabinet Member for Community Engagement and the Leader of the Council, with the support of the Community Wellbeing Team, write to the Gloucester MPs seeking their active support to secure additional government funding to enable the Council to improve its support to communities across the city. So again, it's like an ongoing measure that we will be continually trying to look and get that funding that we can from the government. The 3rd recommendation, the council customer service advisors are to take a curiosity-led approach when dealing with public inquiries in order for them to know what funds, grants, benefits they could be eligible for. I think this recommendation speaks for itself that on that initial contact, it could be that the customer service advisors get a more in-depth knowledge of their current situation so that they can then be in a position to advise of the current grants or fundings that could be available for them. 4, the council website is regularly kept up to date with the latest funding opportunities and grants available for both individuals and communities alike. This came from a question that was given to me at the Overview Scrutiny Committee, and I think it's actually really important to have that up-to-date information on the website for those that can see the website. That said, I know many can't access website information, but then again, that's where the customer service advisors come from, and that's where that information could be given. 5, members of this council be provided with information on existing grants, new grants and funding, which comes either directly into the City Council or through the County Council by communication channels such as member matter email briefings. Again, a very valid point made by a scrutiny member who said about using the existing channels to inform members, as many members of this council did not understand or did not know what measures or grants were out there, and this information should be known. And the last recommendation as part of this Cabinet report is number 6. The Overview Scrutiny Committee be provided with annual key performance indicators of each of those measures as shown in Appendix 1, stating the actual fund, the numbers of application, whether successful or unsuccessful, reasons for unsuccessful applications, and the amount received for successful applications. I think this is really important information for members of that scrutiny to know. I know there was some indicators of time, but we can guarantee that this sort of report will come back to Overview Scrutiny in a year's time, and then further deliberation can take place. But so that's the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Has any member got any comments they want to make before I butt in? No? I want to thank the Labour group for bringing this motion to council. I think what we do to help people suffering from the cost of living crisis is really important. But I also think everybody needs to understand that the City Council itself isn't responsible for the cost of living crisis. There's a number of issues which are international and national that have impacted on the economy of the country and put up the prices for everybody, from COVID to Brexit, to the war in Ukraine, to the rising energy fuel prices, and also the mini government of the Liz Truss government, which whacked up interest rates and put the cost of mortgages up for everybody. I do think that we need to understand that these are things outside our control. And we can do what we can within the resources we've got, which is the reason why we think it's important that we write to the 2 MPs that represent the City of Gloucester and ask for their active support in Parliament to secure additional funding, hopefully for this council to do more work for the communities, but also make sure that all the personal benefits that people have are kept at least in in rise with inflation. I mean, I'd like to see the two-child benefit cap lifted. There's issues to do with the fuel allowance for pensioners as well. Maybe when the Chancellor gets round to dealing with the autumn budget, they might adjust the scheme to make it more fair. But I do think there's a load of issues. You know, if we've got the resources, we're provided with the resources from externally from the government, then we can do more to help the people in Gloucester. But I'd like to thank the people that originally moved the motion, and I'd like to accept the report with the new recommendations. Are we content? Yep. Thank you. Caroline, I think this is one for you. Policies for the museum accreditation.
Yep, that's me. So this report's being brought because the Museum of Gloucester is an accredited museum, which means that it meets the UK industry standards set by the sector for museums and galleries. The accreditation scheme's managed as a UK partnership between Arts Council England, the Welsh Government, the Museum Galleries Scotland and Northern Ireland Museums Council. The standards basically cover how we manage our museum, so how we look after our collections, how we engage with our users, and they reassure people that we're looking after our collections responsibly and managing public resources responsibly as well. And they also reinforce a shared and ethical approach to running the museum. So some of the benefits of having this accreditation are it means that we have to maintain high standards in how we run the museum. We have to be accountable. We have to manage and monitor performance. It increases our chances of obtaining funding if we can demonstrate our professionalism through this accreditation. Our staff can access professional advice and support, so helping them do their jobs better. And it also reassures people who donate items or bequeath items to the museum that we're going to look after them correctly, ethically. They'll be safeguarded for the future and they'll be made accessible to members of the public. So our next return needs to be submitted in 2025 so that we can retain our accreditation status. The last renewal was in 2018, but the policies have to be updated every time we renew. So we have to provide evidence of 4 mandatory policies that we as the governing body need to approve. They've been written by a working group, which included representatives from Cultural Services Management Team, from Visitor Services, Events, Engagement, and the Collections Team, and they now require us as a Cabinet to approve them. So the 4 policies are Collections Development Policy, and this covers our approach to acquisitions and disposals. It includes our museum's statement of purpose, an overview of our current collection and our themes and priorities for the future. There's a documentation policy, which is all about how we document the items in our collection, make sure we gather and record sufficient information about them so they can be identified and located. We've got a collections care and conservation policy, and that describes how we meet our ethical commitments when we're dealing with our collections and our legal requirements for caring and conserving our artefacts. That also includes the upkeep and maintenance of the buildings that they're housed in as well. And then we've got the access policy, which is how we make sure our buildings and collections are accessible to all users with different needs. So it's a long but interesting read, especially the first of those, the collections development policy. It's got some really interesting information there about how the museum has evolved over time, all the different phases it's gone through and locations of our collections as well, and some of the key acquisitions as well. And it took me even longer to read it because every time a really interesting sounding historical character popped up in the descriptions, I wanted to go off and find out about them. Who is this guy? So yeah, I've learned a lot about Bishop Hooper, who was burned at the stake for heresy under Queen Mary I, and Jemmy Wood, the Gloucester miser, as he was known, who inspired Charles Dickens' character Ebenezer Scrooge. And also Sir Matthew Hale was an interesting one as well. He was a Gloucestershire judge who represented the Royalists, first of all, during the English Civil War, but then after all that, he went on to oversee the law reform under Oliver Cromwell. So, yeah, we've got some really interesting characters in our history, and it's nice that they're represented in our museum and our collections. So, yeah, as I said, we as a cabinet now just need to approve these policies so that we can send our submission off for renewal of our accreditation status.
Anybody else want to comment? No? Officers? No? It is a comprehensive document, and I was impressed by the detail, and it's really good to see a positive move forward for our museums. I think there's so much more we can do to let the people of Gloucester and the visitors know about the history of this city. 2,000 years of history is quite a lot to give people. So the beginning of the document, again, I found that quite interesting to hear the history of the collections and how they've developed over time, and how some things were acquired and others disposed of. But it is a comprehensive document, and we should endorse it. So I assume we're all happy to do that. We are. Okay, thank you. And then the final report is the Armed Forces Community Covenant update. Rebecca.
Yes, so the Armed Forces Covenant is a promise by the nation ensuring that those who serve or have served in the armed forces and their families are treated fairly. And therefore, I'm very pleased to be bringing this report to the Cabinet. I think it must be said that as a council and as individual members, we have the utmost respect for all current and former members of the armed forces. And you'll see in section 3.3 our commitments. And it is vital that we encourage our local communities to support their armed forces communities in their area. You'll see that there have been put, since the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, some recommendations. And in recognising the importance and worthiness of this particular area, I felt that Councillor Lewis, who spoke so passionately and has been involved for many, many years, should be made, and I'm delighted that he has accepted the role of Armed Forces Liaison Member. He will work in the same way as the former champions, but with a new title, and I have no doubt that Councillor Lewis will be able to bring to my attention all things armed forces related in going forward. So I'm really delighted about that. There was also a point made at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting, which I believe it was Councillor Stephanie Chambers raised, and this was about consideration to be given to making armed forces events in Gloucester more family friendly, if possible. And I think this was an excellent point that she raised. And I think, you know, that's something to be mindful of in going forward when looking at the events. Of course, there's some events which this may not be possible, and that's completely fair enough. But otherwise, you know, it's quite nice to get family involvement with these events. So, but yeah, delighted to bring this report forward anyway. Thank you.
Anybody wish to comment on this? No? I notice Andrew Lewis has already got it on, and I got it on his email signature that he's the Armed Forces Liaison Member. So he's obviously very keen to do it. So we're happy to appoint him to that role, and it would be helpful to support the Cabinet member in dealing with issues related to engagement with the armed forces in Gloucester. So we'll pass that one on. Finish that, agree? Yeah. That's the end of the meeting. It's taken us 25 minutes.